Hello everyone. So in this video, we are going to see the order packages. The order tables like employee orders and order details and projects. And for those tables or for those packages, we are going to see the process in kind of a fast way, because as I mentioned before, that we are going to apply the same process as we did in our customer package here. We're going to use the same type of DB source and other components like derived column conversion, data conversion, union, and aggregate. And maybe we're going to add other component depending on what we are going to do in our pipeline. So let's type our employee here. As you see, we always like drag and drop our data flow task here in our window here. So we double click here. As you see here, we have two data source here. We have our OLEDB data source for employee table. We are using Northwind database. And for the flat file, also we browse our CSV file in data source here, Northwind result. And as you see here, if we check our CSV files, we pick our employees. Okay. And now for our component derived column that we needed to do some cleansing and transforming, we are using the replace function, and as we did in our customer, we are replacing the quotes with empty space for each variable, for the employee name, for employee ID and country. In the data conversion, we convert our data to string DTSTR, and we apply the same process here in our SQL Server database. We need to concatenate the first name and last name. And for the conversion, we convert employee ID, company, employee name, and country name, country employee, of course. And for merging, for merging those data sources, we need to use the component union. There is another component which is merge, but we are not merging data. We are just concatenating the data. So this union here, as you see, we match our columns. So the copy of employee ID it match with the copy of employee ID of the second input and etc. for the name and the country. After that, as I mentioned in customer, we need to check if there are any redundant value or duplicate rows. So we need to use the aggregate function here that group the columns that we need and count the numbers of repetition of those rows. And here in conditional splitting, we check this condition, which is if the count all here is equal 1, so we are going to take those data, else we're not going to take it. So this is what does conditional split do? Okay, so here in our OLEDB destination, we are loading our data to the employee table using the Northwind SSIS database. For the mapping here, as you see, we mapped our columns. And now if we start our component here, yes, there is an error here. I will explain why. Because if we go to the flat file here, sorry, here, if we make a preview here, there is no data because we didn't connect our data source. So what we need to do here, browse, go to the source DB here, Northwind result, because we just changed our destination files. That's why it doesn't recognize it. So now we're going to columns, I think. Press OK. If we're going to preview, you see our data. Nice. Press OK. This is OK. Now let's start again. And voila. As you see here, we have 18 rows, which is the same here. We have 18 rows. So now if we go to our Northwind SSIS, let's say here, refresh our tables. If we go to employee here, we see that we have our data. Yes, also forgot to sort our data. We can deal with this. Let me delete first of all. Let's type delete here. And just get rid of select, and then we execute the SQL query here. Then we go to our SSIS here and stop the process. and we choose the sort component here. Okay, and we are going to delete this row and link it to sort. In a sort here, we need to sort by employee ID. Yeah, and finally we link to our table. Now, if we start again the process or the pipeline, we're gonna insert 18 rows, and here, if we're gonna select our row, yeah, sorry. As you see here, it is kind of sorted, but is not as I wanted. I mean, I want to split. I mean, to start by SQL Server, database, and Access, but it doesn't work. But it's okay. It's okay. It doesn't matter. I mean, we have 18 rows, so we just managed to load our data from data source to staging area. Now we need to pass to second table, which is the product table here. Let me close those windows. Okay, so in the product table here is the same thing. So we need to drag and drop our data flow task. However, in the pipeline, there is some changing. So we connect our plot file to our database. Let me browse. Let me check CSV file, and we need our product. Here it is. Okay, let me check our column. Okay, nice. Let's press OK. Okay, let me start with the right side here. So in the right column here, I also use the replaced column just to get rid of the codes that we have in our data. And we have the product ID, product name, and category here. As you see here, data type is a string, but a different type. And after that, we did some conversion. So we convert our data to a string here. In the left side, as we know that our product table here, we see in our staging area, I mean our data source, we have the categories and we have the product. So we need to join those tables or merge them based on category ID, which is the foreign key in our product table. So how we do that? First, before any merging, SSIS, the condition of merging here is to, first of all, we sort the data based on category ID, of course, both of the data source here. So if we check here on our data source, we are selecting our category. In the second data source here, we are selecting the products. Now, after sorting, we're going to use this component, which is merge join. So we're going to merge in our category ID here with the category ID in a second table and using the inner join. And after that, we are going to pick the category name and we are going to pick the product ID and the product name as a value to put in our merged table. So this is how it works, this component. After merging our data, now we need to convert our output and convert it to string. After that, we're going to use the component union all, which is the T-unit for talent. So we merge our columns as we did in employee and customer. And after that, we're going to use these two components that replace the T-unique rows. We're going to aggregate our data, and we're going to use this count all, just a condition to split our data to see if there are any redundant value. After that, we're going to load our data to our product table. Okay, so I think if we're going to run our code here, it's working, and we have 122 row of product. Let's check if it works. So we go to our SQL, we go to our table here, product, select rows. I don't think so. I'm not going to use the sort here because it doesn't do what I want. So I will let it here like this. However, let me check. As I said, we have 122 row. Let me go to Northwind here. Let me go to product. Yeah, I can check because I need to. I think I need to. Let me check it here. So let's go count. We count. Yes, And if we merge those data with the category, yes, with the access table, we're gonna have like 122 rows. I think in the wrong table here. Let me check the Northwind stage area. It's better. Let me go to product here. Let me check here. Yes, which is true. We have 122 rows, so it works fine. Nice. So after this product table, now we go to orders and order details. Let me start with orders. So for the orders here, as you see, we use the data flow task that let us to create our pipeline. We have two data sources here. Let me start with the flights file here, the browse, and we go to our CSV files, which is orders. We check the columns here. The columns are fine. Good. Column. Yeah, as you see here in the preview, our column doesn't have any quotes. We can do that transforming. We can. I mean, not we can. I mean, if we want to, we do it, but it's better to do it in case there are errors. So, there's something here weird. Let me check something here. Yeah. Yeah, let me fix this. Why those those columns were shown here, because as I said, I changed the location of file, so that's why it messed up. So it's okay. Let me press OK. Okay, I see. So I just fixed those errors, and let's see again. So here, as I mentioned, we don't need the function replace here. Why? Because as you see here in our flat file, if we see the preview, the data is clean. And here in the conversion component, we just convert our data to string, which is dtstr, and also the deliver to integer, 4-byte signed. Those types, I think it's the data structure types. So we have, it depends on the type of the integer. Maybe there are 4-byte, 8-byte, and etc. But it doesn't matter. Just convert it to 4-byte here. In the left side, here we have our orders from SQL Server database, as you see here. And in the right column here, we just need our delivered, which is a function that calculate, check if there are any null value here of the chip date. So there is a null value here, so it's gonna be 0, else 1. As we see in Talend, I think we did the same process in Talend. And after that, we're gonna join or merge this data here with using the union here, and we match our columns. And finally, our OLEDB destination contain orders table here and the mapping. And we start. And we have 878 rows. So let's go to our SQL Server here. We go to orders and we select our data. And voila, as you see, no, sorry, this is not right database. I think here in orders. So as you see here, we have the orders, ID, the employee ID, and the customer ID also, and the delivered. If this project, if this order is delivered or not, and the order date. Okay, good. Now, let me check something. Yes, it's 878. Nice. After that, we are going to see how we implement our order details. So in our order details here, we need our data flow task also. And also we need our two data source here, two data source, such as a flat file that we are going to get our file from CSV here, which is order details. Okay, and as you see here, the column doesn't contain any code, so it's cleaned. Press OK, then press OK here. I'm gonna fix those here because, as I mentioned in orders, I changed the location of the file, so that's why there are some errors here. I'm going to fix them a little bit here. Give me a second. So I just finished from fixing those programs. Now, if we check in our derived column, here we have the order ID, product ID, and quantity unit price. In each ID, I add X variable here, a value, I mean, for differentiating between the two data sources, as we did in Talend. And after that, we need to convert those data to a string for the order and the product IDs. And for the quantity and unit price, we need to convert them to numeric value. We do the same process here in the left side. However, we don't need any derived columns. So we need only the conversion component. So we convert our order ID and product ID to a string, and also the quantity and unit price to a numeric value. For any and all here, we match our data, and we give each column an alias here. So as you see here, order ID, product ID, and quantity and unit price. And finally, in our data source, our data destination, we map our derived columns here from those data sources to our database. And if we start the component, we have in here 2,230 rows, 13 rows, which is the same result as we had in our Talend. So if we go here and refresh our table, as you see here, order details, and if we're going to query our table, we have our order ID, product ID, the quantity, and the unit price. So this is how we deal with the staging area. And as we saw how we create our packages and our pipelines. And here, as you see, so for SSIS, the packages are the job design in Talend, and the component in SSIS and Talend. There are some differences. There are some pros and cons, but it depends on how you deal with them. So this is how we deal with the staging area. As we did in our Talend, we create our job designs, which are the packages in our SSIS, and create our components. We use team up, and we saw how to implement the team up in our SSIS with different components like derived column and then the conversion, and how we merge or concatenate the data tables using the T-union, the union all here as a T-unit component in Talend, and some there are some components like in the product table here, as you see, the merge component that make it's kind of a lookup between those tables here, and taking the inner join with the category and what we call it, the product table. And however, in Talend, we use the team up, that, as I said, it does a lot of things, not like SSIS. So the difference between SSIS and Talend is like the number of the component that you are going to use to have one simple process. So after this, after finishing the staging area, we're going to pause to see how to create the data warehouse, to create the dimensions and load them to the database, and how we create a fact table, and how we do the join between the fact table and dimensions. So see you in the next video.